Director Finance, Engineer Samuel Nkansa. Director Engineering, Engineer Vincent Boache. Also with us this morning is the Director, Ms. Monica Senanu. We are also joined by the Director, Technical Services, Engineer Bernard Jan. Also with us this morning is the Director of Procurement at Gridco, Engineer Nicolina Yembila. We are also joined by the Director in charge of System Operations, Mr. Frank Autry. Also with us is the Director for Audit, Mr. Richard Intim. With us is the Director in charge of Southern Network, Engineer Mark Ban. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the Chief Executive Officer of Gridco and Head of Delegation, Engineer Ebenezer Kofi Asin. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have from the Ministry of Information, our Chief Director, Mrs. Mamle Andrews, with us. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the Minister for Information and Member of Parliament of Wasia Iribi constituency, Honorable Kojo Opon Nkrumah, with us. So I will invite the Honorable Minister for his remarks, and then we will come back to you for the second part.
Colleagues, good morning. And how are you doing? I haven't seen many of you in a long while. I've missed you too. As the Honorable Deputy Minister mentioned, today is World Radio Day. And I have a few remarks to share with the nation through you just before we start the report that we are taking today from Gridco. Today, the world celebrates World Radio Day with the theme Radio and Peace, highlighting the important role that radio plays in promoting understanding and reconciliation, providing a platform for diverse voices, and breaking down barriers to create a more peaceful world. Radio has the unique ability to reach people in every corner of the world and has proven to be a valuable tool in conflict prevention and peace building. Whether through education or information dissemination or providing a platform for the marginalized communities to share their stories, radio has the potential to bring people together and foster a culture of peace appropriately. In recognition of the World Radio Day, organizers and communities worldwide are coming together to celebrate the power of radio and its contributions to peace and conflict prevention. And there are several events that are being organized all over the world in commemoration of this day. Here in Ghana, we celebrate what radio has done for our democracy and elections over the years. For those of you who recall, I think in 1992, 93, you go to the Independence Square, the big board, and then they'll write the returns from the polling stations there. Today, with the growth of media and in particular radio, you can sit in your home and hear minute-by-minute account of how the elections are proceeding, how results are trickling in, how democracy is being entrenched. Radio has also been a major tool for accountability, for public education, and for countering misinformation. In times when we've had major challenges, radio has been a very quick tool for reaching out to our population and for countering misinformation. So on this World Radio Day here in Ghana, the Ministry of Information, we also celebrate the industry and its work over the years. But in particular, with the theme of Radio and Peace, we'd like to draw the attention of media houses that operate particularly in areas where sometimes conflicts may rise up. In Boko and other places, I'm sure you are familiar with the stories of how media houses or radio sometimes have contributed to the conflict instead of helping to bring about radio and peace. To bring about peace in those times. And so on a day like this, as we celebrate World Radio Day with the theme Radio and Peace, we would like to in particular remind our colleagues who operate in places where sometimes tensions may rise, sometimes there may be conflict, that we have a particular responsibility to help in the exercise to bring peace and unity and not necessarily fuel it. And on this day, we celebrate all who are in this industry. I thank you for your time. I'll do a quick translation into Twi, and then I'll yield the podium to the plenty engineers who are here to give us the report for the day. And that's wrong. We are seeing now radio kasajuma no radio kasajuma no na yekai we are seeing now no say asem wa infancy ani so radio ene senia yede ekroye yede abotoyem eba bebia yewo na radio yebeka ya asom amayamai bebre Ghana ha se yankasa asom ye papa wohwe tete no na abakra ye to a gise nyina ekọ Independence Square ne ekọ akọhwe board so se hwan na edi nkunima na hwan na ndi nkunima nim no wotu fie wo so radio kra wotumi hu de ekọ ye to abane na wotumi hu de ekọ ye wie ne ye kan wotumi hu de ekọ aboa ma ye dodo adwe nkyira mammo no ene yabato hu nsamsam no etintim ebi radio so aboa ma senia eletumi hye obi nsa sasem bi wo si ebisa na fidie ya so na etumi edi sa nkomo no se e wo se ye akwankyerema mensin bebrea public education radio adwuma ya boa ya maye de ye ansana so obi ede asem bi koto abonten a enye nokore na nkofo edi opinion ya de radio ya so boa ya maye tumi tenetene no mia minimum ka se mpempi mabegina ha nsem bi ekoso enye nokore menemo edi hu nkomo amaboa ma omani na tintine se ye kai radio adwuma no na yehim hu handkerchief a na ewo de ntia ye ne sa na ne si wiase nyina ni so di World Radio Day ne yesi radio ene senia ede bokoye abotoyem ebeba baby bebre na no so na yegina so de asraban na so de asase titi enu no ma ye adwuma radio kasafidie no so wo ba bia eto de bia na mentime ho ase asori ana ba bia ntokwa kakra asori no yen kai hu se asudi soronko edaye so se ye de kasafidie no beboa na ama abotoyem aba sinse enumu ye de ebeye takra wojem na ama ni ayekoso wo hwa ayema nkofo akoma pagya no akosoro na titiriu na nse ntemem se mbeka ya baabi bebre a akoma sorry kakra boko ene miaye maku mienu no mse National Media Commission krampo ebo kokose radio nyuma ni bie wo ho no yenhwe ye ho ye na se ye mane mana kosoro nti na wiase nyina ye celebrate World Radio Day no ye bo Ghana radio adwumayefo nyina baso na mom ye san so eka mo se titiru ye no ma ye adwuma wo ba bia akoma wo so kakra no ye nka so dia edai so medamo nyina ase. So I yield the podium to Honorable Deputy Minister so that we can continue with the briefing.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for those beautiful remarks. Before we proceed, I would like to acknowledge our media partners who are picking this briefing live. If you are joining us from your homes or your offices, I believe you are watching us on GTV or listening on Asasi Radio and Oman FM or Happy FM. We also have MX24 TV and ETV picking this program live. You can also join us on Facebook at Ministry of Information and also at State Governance Authority Facebook page or SIGA page. And on that note, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Corporate Affairs Director of SIGA, who has joined us this morning, Mr. Stephen Esiedu. This platform is created in collaboration with SIGA. So thank you so much, and I will now yield to the Chief Executive Officer of GRIDCO for his presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Minister just took a leave of us, but Deputy Minister is here, Chief Director, bosses from SIGA. I'll stand on the protocols as enumerated by the Deputy Minister of Information and proceed with the presentation. GRIDCO has established our key issues has to do with transmitting of power from one location to the other. I'll go through the presentation in this format. Snapshot of the grid. We'll look at performance review over the past year, key achievements, challenges, projects, ongoing, completed, upcoming. Then we do the question and answers. For our vision, it has to do with, we are supposed to be a model electricity company in Africa. Our mission is to provide a reliable electricity for our development. Our task, as part of our goal, is to achieve 99.95% of grid reliability. What it means is that on average, 99.5%, the grid should be available to transmit the power. We'll have a quick snapshot of our development. So far, we have 31 bulk customers. We have 14 generating stations, including VRA IPPs, hydro, 3 hydros, the rest are thermal. We have 2 solar grid connections. Total installed capacity is 5,231 megawatts. That is what is available. All being equal, if all the plants are in good shape and all of them have the required fuel to fire them, we have 5,231 megawatts. Our electricity circuit across the country is about 6,500, leading to about 7,000 kilometers. And this one has 69 kV, 161 kV, 225 kV, and an extra high voltage, which is a 330 kV. Our role in where we sit has to do with, first, gas supply, because gas is a major input for power generation now, significant input. So that becomes the base that leads to generation. For the hydros, their fuel is water. For the thermal plant, either you use diesel fuel oil, gas, heavy fuel oil, or light crude oil. So that component becomes the base for which we drive the generation. Generators are IPPs, VRA, BUI, and the solar that I mentioned earlier. GRIDCO stands in the middle as the system operator and the network maintenance company. The system operator, by and large, is the one that controls all the system. You call on when this plant should come in. You indicate when the plant must shut down. If you have a challenge, one plant tells you that I have a deficit with this, you need to call. Should in case one plant goes out and we are not having any replacement, system operator must have a conversation with ECG and NEDCO that I am short with this, just give me some relief. All in an effort to make sure the system continues to stay intact. The next one has to do with the distribution companies. It has to do mainly NEDCO, ECG, and Enclave Power that does distribution within the enclave. If you look at the composition of the energy resources, renewable is supposed to be, per government policy, hiked up to about 10%. As of now, we are doing 1% thereabout. Thermal has about 66%, and the rest is hydro, which is about 33%. We'll look at our key performance review over last year. The KPIs are transmission losses, which the target for us was 3.8%. Q3, we did 20. Q3 2022, we had 4.16. Q2 2022, we had 4.54. 2022, we had 4.02. The transmission losses has a direct relation to where plants are generating from and which transmission lines are in circuit. For Q4 2022, the loss computed is 3.69%. The next item that we look at has the transmission system average interruption duration index. Transmission system average interruption transmission duration index. What it means is that if the line, because it's a system goes off, what is the time required to bring it back to service? That duration, there is a target for it in line with our mandate. For the reference is 2 hours. For Q1, 7 hours, 0.27 hours. For Q3, we did 1.1 hours on average. These are average values. For Q1, we have 0.19 hours. For Q4, we have 0.31 hours, which means by and large, it was within the regulatory framework. But it depends on where you live. If yours go off, some of these values, you don't tend to understand it, but these are average computed values. Maintenance accomplishment. Our target was 95%. Q3, we did 99.14. Q2, we did 99.29. And Q1, we did 99.50. For Q4, we did 99.20. By and large, we were average. These are mainly planned, so we structure it to make sure we maintain the equipment to keep them healthy for the system. EBITDA, that is a finance word, that is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. The target for us is 47%. Q3, we did 46.1. Q2, 44.79. Q1, we did 45.68. Q4, we did 59.4. Revenue per unit transmitted, average is 4 cedis, 53 pesos per kilowatt hour. You can see the values. Q3, 6.83 kilowatts per cedis per kilowatt hour. Q2, 6.12 cedis kilowatt pesos per kilowatt hour. Q1, 6.02 pesos per kilowatt hour. Then Q4, we had 8.13 Ghana cedis per kilowatt hour. We should not forget that Q3 PRC gave some medium-term adjustment to the tariff, so that played a role in this. The next item that we'll have a look at is average system availability index. On average, how is the power system available? For the benchmark, we have 99.7%. For Q3, we did 99.94%. Q2, 99.84%. Q1, 99.96%. And Q4 had 99.93%. Averagely, these are industry standards that are benchmarked for our performance. Also, we look at 2021 as against 2022. We have the total number of substations, the transformer capacity as of 2021, then the transmission lines value, which is about 7,200 kilometers. Substations are 68. Remember, 2022, we had Pokuase commission, we had Kasua commission, in addition to others. Transformer capacity increased because when you commission these substations, you bring on board the additional capacities at these substations. And that is the reason why the values are. The lines haven't changed much between the 2 years. Regulatory threshold as part of our performance review. The SAIDI is 5.20. 2022, we did 5.22. We're a little above. SAIFI is 156. We did 300. Clear indication that we could not achieve the target, and therefore we need to work more to it. Feeder availability, 99%. We did 99.95. Transmission line availability, 99. That's the regulatory threshold. We did 99.26. Plant maintenance, 95. We did 99. Transmission losses, for the first time in many years, 4.0. We met the regulatory benchmark of 4.0. What happens is that on average through the month, the 12 year, when you sum them and you divide by 12, we achieved that target. I'll jump straight to operational challenges. This one had to do with our effort to bring in additional ladies in our operation. We are too masculine, but gradually we are improving. What we say is that what the men can do, the women can do far better. For instance, we've been educated that we should not say a linesman. We say a line staff, because a lady can also climb the tower and do exactly what we do, as it happens in other jurisdictions. And we are keeping our mind on that to achieve that, because we need to bring our ladies to the fore. Operational challenges, and here I will plead with our friends in the media. We really need to work together on these aspects of things. Overgrown of our lines, we need to clear them. A lot has happened with the grade, appeared to be quite calm and stable. The grid really doesn't like too much of noise, and therefore we are making a conscious effort to clear the lines, but it comes at a huge cost. And we need to count on you to let us educate our brothers whose farms these lines go through, so that if there are trees that are in their farm, we may have to cut them. It will impact a little on some of their cocoa trees. It is not with bad intention, but it is for the good of us. That's why we do those things. You can see the picture that shows where a line passes. It's quite challenging. Some of the lines go through very thick forest, extremely thick. And the reason is that we also try to minimize the cutting or going through the forest without opening it up too much. That leads to those who go and illegally harvest the timber. So we blend the two in the way we do our things. Galamsey, I don't know whether the gold has started to normally form around the base of our towers. It's becoming a problem for us where galamseyers consciously dig under our lines. There are challenges where we needed to go and relocate the tower at an additional cost. The one that there was working so well, but you can see that to come and tell us that tower is collapsing because, or some of the steel members have been removed by the galamseyers, because I understand they use it to do whatever in their tunnels. I've never been to any of the tunnels, so I don't know how they do it, but that's what I understand. These are things that we need to let our brothers and sisters appreciate, that this infrastructure are there for our collective good, and we need to protect them. Occasionally, as a power system, we normally have some challenges. Normally, when you see the lines, you don't see the fire on them, but they are extremely dangerous. Extremely. They are quiet, but they are extremely dangerous. And therefore, when we make the case that, look, we need to stay off the right of way because of challenges. Quite recently, a typical one tipper truck You know, when people see the corridor that are available, they assume it has no purpose. A tipper truck went, collected sand from somewhere. I think it's a waste kind of sand. Tipping it, he forgot where he was standing, lifted the truck up. He did not touch the line, but all the tires got busted. There was fire on the line. It dropped somewhere that is close to our substation. Lucky for us, we saw it early, and fire service was called in to assist us. If he had gone further, I don't think the driver would have survived. For the tires to go burst like that, it is dangerous. Let's educate ourselves and stay away from it. Occasionally, we have challenges, a transformer fault. We are making a conscious effort to put in a system so that if you have a challenge with one transformer, customers should not experience it. At times, I listen to radio and social media, and people make the case that Otenabruchi, 20 years, there's not been any light off. In the developed countries, for your house, you have about 3 or 4 access to your house. It's called reliability. First reliability, second, third. So the systems go off, but you, the consumer, you don't see. We're a developing country, limited resources, few people paying tax. We need to mobilize additional resources to move ourselves into that regime. The next one I'll talk about has to do with all legacy lines that we are making a conscious effort to reconstruct. Really, they will overlive their usefulness. We talk about the Western Corridor that has to do with from Prisia all the way towards Kumasi. So Takrade, Takwa, Pristia, Dunkwa, Ayamfuri, all those places, towards Kumasi, that's we call it the Western Corridor. We are going through the motions in line with the PFM for us to reconstruct that line. Those were built in the 60s. They are far older than I am, although I'm not that young. And they've served us well. We need to replace them. The next one has to do with the coastal. Coastal is the one that moves from Accra all the way to Aboade. So you have Aboade, Cape Coast, Winneba, now Kaswa, Mala. We need to reconstruct. As of now, approval has been granted for us to do. We started gradually from Achimota to Malam. We have approval to do Malam to Kaswa. So the rest, systematically, we need to replace them. From a capacity of 170 MVA, just focus on the numbers. Per circuit is 2. You are moving one from 170 to 488. That is significant, using the same corridor. Because that's what we need to do for the future. Transmission lines are constructed into the future. It is not only for today. So whatever you do, 10, 15, 20 years, they should be available. These ones that we are reconstructing, many of them have lived over 60 years. And therefore, there's the urgent need for us to reconstruct. The middle corridor, that has to do with the route from Akusumbu, Tafu, Nkoko, Konongo to Kumasi. That is what we refer to as the middle corridor. They all built at the same time. When Akusumbu Dam was originally built, one long line went round all the south, the coastal, the western, the middle, and came back to Akusumu. Those are the ones that we are reconstructing. Then we have the proper eastern corridor. That one has to do with the line from Masikpi, There's a leg that also goes to Sogakope. You have Pandu. I think you have Pandu, Peve. Then now, the last one is KJB. Yes. That is a line that has completely outlived its usefulness. It's a 69 kV. We've completely exhausted the capacity. We are aware that it translates into significant transmission losses for us, but unfortunately, resources are, we are planning for it, NEDCO wants us to build a 161 kV line from Yendi all the way down about 200 plus kilometers. Based on the economic disruptions, transmission line of this capacity has about close to $300,000 per kilometer. So if you multiply even 300,000 by 200 kilometers, that's a huge number. You're looking at about almost $66 million. Those are the ones that we need to factor. We've started engagement with the hope that we'll get some concessionary kind of loan to facilitate some of these developments. I go on to short-term projects. And here, these are the ones that we need to do going forward. We have, Kumasi has 2 substations. The one at Ahomaso, which also links up with a 330 kV from Abuade. It's about just under 20 kilometers between the Ahomaso substation and the Ahonjo substation, the old one. We have a grant of 10 million euros from EIB to reconstruct that line. Unfortunately, it is a major link to the grid that we cannot take that line out without an alternative to transport the power that comes from Abuade on the 330. It gets stepped down or reduced to 161. It should get a path to go to the Ahonjo substation, which has bulk of the load in Kumasi. That's the original location. Therefore, the board approved for us to construct about 24 kilometers of the old existing line between Konongo and Kumasi. 24 kilometers. As I speak to you, contract has been awarded, construction has started, and the that have been completed is about 10. Unfortunately, there are some locations that squatters within the corridor are still preventing the contractors to work. We'll do engagement with the regional minister and the appropriate authorities, but friends of the media, please, let's educate ourselves that we are doing it for our collective good. They should grant us the access for us to be able to do that. It is only when we do this that you have a path for the power to flow to Kumasi, that we can take the Ahomaso to the Kumasi one out and utilize the grant. We need to utilize the 10 million euro grant because you normally don't get free money around this time in the world, and therefore we'll take advantage of that. Special tariff project. We thank and we are grateful to the PRC based on the case we made to grant us money for us to use to deploy short-term capital project, all in an effort to make sure we reduce our losses, increase reliability of the grid for us consumers to be happy. So in this particular case, we have 3 key projects. We have a 225 kV substation at Prestea. Originally, it was picking its source from the 161. Remember, I mentioned that the 161 are the old lines that are heavily overloaded and contributing significantly to our losses. So, the 330 kV that is leaving Abuade all the way to Kumasi, we are taking it to Prestea to build a 330-225 kV substation so that the demand on the export load will be taken away from the 161 onto the 330. Also, Prestea originally had 2 equipment that help with the voltage supply. They are called the condensers, 20 megawatt bank each. They were installed in the 80s. Unfortunately, they've all failed. And Prestea has always, instead of 225, you always have a low voltage about either 211 or 213. Without any mathematics, you can see that it is a node that contributes significantly to our technical losses. And therefore, as part of this funding, we are putting in an SVC to improve the voltage at Prestea, and also a similar equipment at Nayagnia. Nayagnia is the interconnection point between Ghana and Burkina Faso. Then, out of this project, the last one has to do with Tafu substation. Tafu is the major load for much of Eastern region. The transformers there are heavily overloaded. When we take one out to do any work, we cannot guarantee supply. So the plan is for us to bring in 2 additional bigger ones to replace, so that even if you need to work on one transformer, the other transformer in service will be able to meet the demand. Then also we have a line from Akosombo that goes straight to Nkoko, then to Kumasi. We intend to break into that line at Tafu to reinforce the supply. In the past, what happens is that if there was the need for us to generate a lot of hydro, and Tema also has a lot of generation, the hydro from Akosombo heads towards Kumasi. When that happens, the old lines get overloaded, and at times we our brothers in ECG, either in Kumasi or Konongo, to reduce load for us. That is an inconvenience to consumers. We intend to break into the Akosombo to Nkoko line at Tafu. Tafu is also a node that supports Akwitia that leads to New Obuasi, which is a mining center. When this is done, we believe it will reduce the losses and improve on the reliability of the NITS. The big one, Accra to Kumasi. If you look at the grade now, we virtually have Kumasi to Abuade, to Pokwasi to Tema. Government has approved a loan for us to about 116.4 million euros, component of about 56.3 or 54.6% grant out of the 116.4. That percentage is grant, and therefore we intend to use it to build a line from Pokwasi all the way to Ahomaso. The reason is that when you have that, any disturbance in any aspect of the grid, consumers will not experience it. Currently, the way we have it on one leg, if Abuadi to Kumasi goes off, Kumasi suffers a little, voltages dip. We need to plead with our brothers in ECG to share load. We intend to see this as a thing of the past. And this is a project that we'll do so from Pokwasi all the way to Ahomaso. It's a double circuit line. What it means is that it has 2. One circuit is here, one circuit is also here. One will go straight. The other one, when we get to Nkoko, will break into that one. Also build a substation between 330 and 161 and link it up to the middle corridor transmission network that I mentioned. All these are being done to guarantee reliability of the grid and its stability. So these are the big ticket items. There are smaller ones like our SCADA system that we need to do in collaboration with VRA. They are giving us some soft loan for us to replace equipment at the Abuade switchyard, because that's a major node for them. So those are low-hanging ones, but I wanted to focus on the big ones. Client-sponsored project. I'll start first with the B5 Plus. B5 is a major steel and fabrication company at La Plecu. I think that's the name. La Plecu is pretty huge. It's a 1D, 1F kind of factory that gives employment to many of our citizens. It's looking at between 60 to 100 megawatts of power, and therefore they are pre-financing, or they have sponsored the substation jointly between us and VRA for that facility to be brought up. We are looking at towards the end of this month to commission the substation. I believe when that time is due, we'll duly invite our brothers from the press to accompany us with that commissioning. Newmont Ahafo North. That is another Newmont mine between Sunyane and Kenya for north. That is between. It is supposed to help with the development of a new concession by a new month. This BSP, when it comes and the mine is working, will give employment to our brothers and sisters in that community. So that is also ongoing. Contract has been awarded. Jointly, we are doing reviews. Cardinal Namdini, that is around, not too far from where the Pualugu plant is. That also has to do with a plant that is looking at almost about 60 megawatts. We visited the place last time, and you can see that they are a serious business company. Initially, we were doubting the kind of energy volumes that they were requesting, but upon visiting, you can see that there is a serious company, and they are here to do business. It's ongoing. Our Mary and Siemens plant relocation. Gridco has been ready since last year. Awarded contract for our 2 bays to be prepared to facilitate quick relocation of the Mary plant to Kumasi for strategic reasons. Any generation within the middle belt will prevent that excess that must go on the line from the south. Anytime you are transmitting more power on the lines, without power, nobody steals some. We don't steal. It is the conductors themselves that consume the power. So the closer you get a plant to a location that has bulk load, the better. Then also it will support us in exporting more power to our brothers in Burkina Faso, with even intention of extending the line to Mali in the future. Increase in our export market. It's quite unfortunate that our brothers in Burkina Faso in April wanted us to do about 225 megawatts, but we have a little constraint with one of our auto transformers, and therefore we are doing about 150, 160, 170, max 180 so far. But we need to be aggressive for the regional business. And quite recently, when the president returned from Côte d'Ivoire, a request was made to him for Ghana to support Côte d'Ivoire with additional power. Discussions has commenced with VRA for them to run a plant dedicated to them. So instruction has gone to Director System Operations that there is a challenge with their system now, and that's why we are neighbors and family across some tribes, and therefore that is what we need to do to help. It also helps with our revenue inflows, and for the first time since 1983, the line between Prestea and Côte d'Ivoire was used for quote-unquote a friendly commercial business. Really, money wasn't exchanging hands. But this time, our brothers from CIA has come for us to sign an agreement. The document is about ready, and when we sign it, we will definitely communicate with the press for your information and attention. The wholesale electricity market. In line with the appropriate airline, Ghana is for the wholesale electricity market, and the timelines are indicated in this schedule. What where we are now is that we have a consultant that is helping us to generate the data required to do the studies. That is mainly required. Systems have started, the market rules have been reviewed. The structure was done earlier. I think 2 weeks ago, IMOP met at Akusumu and virtually reviewed the market rules for onward implementation. The appropriate bodies will be set up, inaugurated by the Honorable Minister, for us to take it forward. The internal one has been done, and Director SND is the one who chairs our internal process. Planned major transmission project. We've received a letter recently from Finance indicating the acknowledgement of this project for us to go ahead and prepare the pre-feasibility study and the feasibility in line with the PFM. Now, any project needs to be justified by a PCN, project concept note. You do your pre-feasibility, you do your proper feasibility, and it's detailed and it's very important. When you do it, you get to know. The option is, if Ghana government has $100 million to give to any utility, do this project in line with the PFM, that would justify clearly where to put the money. So that is what we are on. These are 3 key projects that we must do. Some of them feature the Daboadi Cape Coast Winneba, that's the coastal that I mentioned. Malam to Kaswa, that has to do with, it's Malam to Pokwase, sorry. That has to do with, Pokwase is on 330. The Malam leg is on 161. We intend to connect through a step-down auto transformer to link the Pokwase to Malam. When we do that, then even in Accra and the whole grid, we've given alternative path for power to flow. All of this is to ensure that even if we knock off one full substation, consumers should not feel the non-availability of electricity. I've spoken a lot, but I'll leave this with you. Without the grid, there will be no electricity. That's the bottom line. Without the grid. And I'll tell you a story. I have a friend who came to visit in Christmas, came to Ghana. He belongs to the Big Brother family. Then he was inviting his family to come to Ghana. I said, why? Just take a ticket. Why is there? Just go and visit them. He says, no. Ghana has electricity. Let's keep our eye on the ball. There are 2 things that has kept this country. Economy is tough. We all agree. 2 things. If we short fuel or electricity, it will be worse than where we are. Therefore, we see it as our responsibility not to disappoint the state Ghana. We take our work seriously and we'll keep our eye on the ball. Deputy Honorable Minister, thank you very much.
Please, another round of applause for the Chief Executive Officer of GRIDCO. This was such an insightful presentation. It was loaded with so much. I wanted to keep up, but I said it would take time for me to go back to watch the presentation again and pick some of the substantive issues that he raised. But key among the highlights that I picked are the fact that just between the year 2021 and 2022, GRIDCO has commissioned 3 substations from 65 to 68, including the Kaswa and Pokwase substations. Also, you have managed to get some of your clients, private partners, to also contribute to other projects apart from these 68 substations that you are controlling. And you mentioned collaboration with B5 Plus, Newmont Ghana, and Cardinal Namdini to also set up plants or substations at their respective companies to help with the volumes of energy that they demand. You also mentioned about one very important thing that I wish to highlight, which has to do with the rehabilitation or replacement of some of the old legacy lines. You mentioned that some of the transmission lines are older than you, so I can imagine maybe older than my parents. But through the hard work of yourself and your staff, you are committed to rehabilitating those lines so that we can minimize transmission losses and also solve challenges that may come with voltage fluctuations. You also mentioned some operational challenges that GRIDCO is facing and called on all of us, including the media here in present, to assist with advocacy and public education, especially with regards to encroachment and galamsey. Sometimes I wonder, in Ghana, we are not afraid of anything, But I beg you, when it comes to transmission, as the chief executive mentioned, even a truck not even touching the lines but coming close got the ties burst. So you can imagine, if you are not afraid of earthquake zones, you are not afraid of rain or cars, I beg you, as for the infrastructure that we have for energy transmission, please beware. You also mentioned about how some Galamsey operators have encroached upon some of your facilities, whether they are digging around it or under it, or stealing some of the steel members for other activities within that field. So I call on my colleagues and friends to help us with the public education so that they will stop. Because Ghana, we pride ourselves of having power. And you mentioned that when it comes to the average system availability index, we are talking about 99.7%. That is something I did not even anticipate. I believe if you had mentioned even 70%, we would have clapped for you. But to talk about 99.7%, that is a lot of work. And so many things you mentioned that I don't even have words to express. But to say that you've mentioned a lot of big monies, budget projects, just to keep our lights on. So when lights in our homes, at our workplaces, at our businesses, it is not by chance. It is not by anything, but for the serious investment government has put in energy transmission and the entire energy and power value chain in the country so that we can keep the power on. You also touched on the relocation of the American plant to Kumasi so that we can cut transmission losses, because you mentioned that sometimes people don't necessarily steal the power, but looking at the distance, the contractors themselves also take some of the power in terms of transmission. And that as we seek to increase exports to Burkina Faso, it's when the closer to the middle or northern belt. So thank you for the insight. This has been like a master class on power transmission for all of us, and we thank you so much for making time. Before we invite questions from our friends who are present, I would like to once again acknowledge the media houses that are picking this briefing live. We are live on GTV, Asasi Radio, Oman FM, Happy FM, ETV Ghana, and MX24 TV. On Facebook, we are live on Ministry of Information and at SIGA. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, this is the best time to ask. If you have comments, we will take them as well. Questions, and then invite Engineer Esienyi for his responses. Yeah, Mr. Atta. Kindly mention your name and affiliation for the benefit.
Thank you. Athamensa from GNA. Yeah. That's quite impressive presentation and so great technical for some of us. Chief, I want to find out the debt that Gridco is owing ECG now. Some time ago we heard about some amount. Gridco is owing ECG. Or ECG is owning Gridco. Okay, so we want to know the debt situation between these two companies. Then you mentioned even some of West African countries that we are exporting power to Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast. Somebody will wonder why we are experiencing power challenges, and then instead of solving issues, you are looking at even support other people outside. We are in a crisis. The whole world is in a crisis. And so we look at the world and do and manage issues here. But you are looking at helping others. What is this, the reason or logic behind this thing, instead of managing issues here so that everybody will have power? Then over-dependence on thermal and hydro sources for electricity generation. This is what Ghana has been dealing with. Are you looking at alternative sources of power which is more affordable than this one? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Please, let's keep the questions brief and ask maximum 2 questions.
Yeah.
So
good morning, Engineer.
Okay.
You did mention that acquiring a corridor for your transmission lines has been fraught with all kinds of obstruction and resistance from the locals? Is it a position, or the company is trying to bulldoze its way through? What is the arrangement like? Because if you are coming to pass your transmission through my cocoa farm, or plantain farm, or cashew farm, there must be some kind of compensation. How do you do it? Now, my second question has to do with tariffs. You did mention that the tariffs are not anything to write home about. You said that you thank PRC for allowing to inch up your tariffs. It means that tariff is not what you expect, but because of maybe the state of the country and low incomes, you are certain somehow. What regime do you think would be appropriate for you to be able to get enough money to run your operations?
Okay, we'll take the third, fourth, and then take Paul as the last for the segment.
My name is Nashika Caesar. I work with City FM, City TV. I want to know, during the presentation, it was mentioned that the activities of was costing Gridco. We want to know exactly how much the company is losing as a result of these activities, and also beyond cautioning people who are the Galamsey people, what does Gridco intend to do? Are we going to see Gridco now taking punitive measures against these Galamsey operators? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So we'll take the fourth. David, okay, behind you.
My name is Albert Jeroni from Business Insiders. Understanding the economy is tough now. We are managing to maintain what we have, which is electricity and the fuel. But should this, and that is okay, I acknowledge that, but should the system continue being the same tough way? How do we expect the people to afford these? Because they also need food to survive. And I heard you saying that there are 3 companies that are also supporting you, and they are also helping with the employment. Is Gridco doing anything about employment? Because we need food also to survive, not only the electricity and the fuel. Thank you.
Please, if you can rephrase your question. Are you talking about the companies which are, apart from what government is doing,
yes,
they are also guiding those companies to set up their own substations, yes, so that they can expand? Yes, and you are saying that who needs food to survive?
I'm talking about the citizens, because it's these people that are also using the electricity and the fuel. And these also, they don't have job. And without job, they don't have enough money to afford the fuel and the electricity. So it will be a problem if the system continue being solved this way for years. Then if they can't afford it, how would Gridco function?
I don't know if, Chief, you got the question.
I will try.
Okay, so we'll take the last one from Paul and come back for another round if there is time. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. My name is Paul Nyujedalafu, and I report for the Daily Statesman. I have 2 quick questions for the CEO of Gridco. CEO, you made mention about the role of Gridco to move to transport power from a point to another point. And I want to find out from you, what role do you play when it comes to rural electrification? For I've noticed that some communities are close to each other, and yet still they still don't have light, especially in the northern area. And also people using Gridco towers to commit suicide. What measures are you putting in place to ensure that such things don't affect the transmission of power? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So we'll invite him back for his responses.
I think the first question had to do with the debt value that ECG owes to Gridco. From my last count, I think it's about 2.7 billion Ghana cedis. Director of Finance, am I correct? Okay, ECG and NEDCO, about 2.7 billion. Power export to neighbors. First and foremost, first. So the grid has some quantum of energy that needs to be distributed. Whatever we send out is in excess of whatever we require. Ghana, our energy penetration is about 85 to 86%. The other places that don't have are ones that it is extremely expensive to connect them to the grid. So we are looking at standalone or off-grid kind of connection, like our island and things like that. So that is, we don't give export power at the expense of our local Ghanaian, because we know the purpose of the energy in socio-economic development. Over-dependent on hydro and water, why not look at other local sources? That is why government has set up the nuclear company to have a look at that aspect in order to reduce the cost. Nuclear has a high initial cost, but the operating cost is cheaper. Government is looking at all that options. In addition to we bringing in renewable energy. Renewable energy is key, but you need to station them in a way that they will be efficient. You know, people ask, why don't you put in 400 megawatt of solar? 400 megawatt of solar is a huge land space. Apart from that, and if it's going to rain, immediately the cloud form, it goes to zero. So you need to manage the location so that you spread it in a way that if it's raining, you notice that time when it's raining, you see the clouds from Nigeria. They'll tell us the clouds are coming from Nigeria. You can track it. Over time, you notice that it's entered Benin, Togo, Ghana, then it will go to Cote d'Ivoire, so that you spread the risk. Then also, depending on what quantum of energy, renewable energy, they are called variable renewable. Because they vary, they can be at 10 and can just come to zero. Therefore, when you are running them like that, you need plants that are partially loaded so that immediately that deficit comes, they supply. Those are factors that will come in as part of the reliability. You cannot operate a significant renewable when your plant are shut down, when the renewable goes off. Then now that you are calling generators to come on, no, you experience some delay in load management, and those are the options that are being considered. The issue has to do with compensation, and now when my director legal is here, we do pay the compensation. In the past, it used to be for crop alone, but now the new law, we need to pay fully. We do, but the issue is that, for instance, if we need to cut a big tree, there was a tree that has about 75 meters where it was standing in some farm. If it should fall, it will fall on our line, collapse, we will struggle. So we go to the farmer and plead that let Kai, you say, oh, you spoil my cuckoo for, and say, yes, whatever gets for to compensate. Some are reasonable, they understand. Others don't want to agree. But that is the aspect that I say we need to work together because it's all for our collective good. Our tariff requirement. You see, PRC was set up for two purposes. For us, the industry players, and also for consumers. It always has a difficult task of balancing it. If you ask me, I will say they should give me all I require, all the money I need, so that even when the line goes off, nobody will see. But it's not possible at this time, because the kind of charge that will bring to consumers will be way in excess of what is required. So that's a blend. We make your case, they look, they do a good job, they interrogate your numbers. If you even smuggle things in, they are able to tell you to take it off. You know, so they do a good job. And therefore, the blend is in. What we were happy with had to do with the quarterly adjustment. And I believe they've commenced it. And that one will minimize the impact of sudden shocks that normally we experience with tariff. Galamsey cost, it's huge. Some of them, instead of one tower, we need to leave the tower place, get contractors to spend maybe $200,000 to insert an additional tower. which under normal circumstances we shouldn't have. When they do and the tower collapses, the cost of unserved energy, because industries will go down. Those are all big costs that we easily don't quantify, but it's really a challenge for us. Punitive measures. We try to use all sources to get information. We virtually have made friends with people within those communities, and at times they tell us, but I know these Galamsey people, they are, I don't know the right word to use, but they are some way. You see, they thrive on risk. Therefore, we need to have an education kind of, and have a relationship with them, just so that they stay away from the national infrastructure. I believe with more education, they will understand us and stay off. When you are caught, that one, the law will deal with you. Especially, there are some that you can see that we used to have bolt and nut to screw our tower members. At a point in time, we changed it and used what we call the anti-theft. Cannot go with a spanner and try to remove it. Now what they do is that they go with saw. It's not hacksaw. They go with at times, whether it's mottled or, because the members are thick. But when you get there, you can see that somebody spent time here in cutting this. Those are deliberate. Those are vandalism. When you are caught, that one, the law will deal with you. And you know, in some communities, they don't want to give themselves up. They know, but we try. There are a few people that we've caught and handed over to the police. Tough economy, not only availability of fuel and electricity. That is exactly what I said. The economy is tough. But if we don't have these two, it will worsen the situation. We just had a session with His Excellency, the President of the Republic, and it is either we quickly strategize and jumpstart the economy, or he will boot us out of office. And he did not miss worse. And therefore, we'll be serious with this. We need to turn the economy around fast and quick. It should be a collective decision for all of us. Those who are churning in excessive profit because they have a good that people want, we all need to minimize it, hold our hands together, and move forward. Somebody asked about Greco employment status, or what we do to help. I think it had to do with the economy, kind of. Yes, we would love to employ as many as we want. Now, what we do is that with the expansions, we bring in a few, then also attrition. The old people who are going out, we bring people in. Look, when we bring new substations on board, yes, we need operators, we need electrical maintenance, we need line crew, we need PNC, and therefore we'll bring people up as and when. We understand fully, because it's heartbreaking when you find, electrical engineer is finished school, he hasn't got a job. When we finish school, it's not too late, but jobs were available for us. So we need to be conscious of it and make sure our brothers and sisters, sons and daughters also get employment. Our role in rural electrification. In the past, we used to do the shelled wire scheme. We still have a few of them. The shelled wire is, we have a shelled wire that is supposed to conduct lightning to the ground on our towers. We insulated it and used to supply rural loads. Many of them have overgrown their usefulness. Original Kintampo used to be one, but with the load growth, we've changed. 2 communities with some not getting electricity. Just let's have the details and we take it up with appropriate authorities, whether it's within the ECG zone or within the NEDCO zone. So long as it is within that we can extend power to. We need to, in line with the SDG goals, everybody, universal access to electricity is a priority. And we all know, anytime electricity or road goes to a location, it opens up the community. And that's something we must do. It was quite unfortunate, the incident that happened with our brother who went on the line. It saddens me so much, because what happens is that the tower has what we refer to as anti-climbing. Anti-climbing means that it should prevent you from climbing. So anybody here who hasn't got a good intention would stay off. Unfortunately, the gentleman on information did not get to us early. This is the second time. There was one in the north where that one was on the 330 kV. Information got to the system control center early enough. And that one, without any authorization, he's mandated to take the line out just to protect life. Unfortunately, this one, the information got to us late. And I think what triggered it was people who knew the risk, trying to go help him to come down. That facilitated him going up. But it's something we virtually detailed the director Tenka said to have a look at all our towers and ensure that the anti-climbing, there are measures with pins that can easily prick you. You cannot easily climb the tower that way. They should bring it up to restrict people from going across the levels that are dangerous to human life.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have follow-up questions, we'll take it. This is the final round. If not, we'll invite the CEO for his closing remarks. Okay, I was hoping to see a new hand, but if not, okay, so one, and then we'll take the lady, and then I'll take the last one from you.
Okay, my name is Dennis from TV Africa. Okay, please, I would like to find out from engineer, from what you said, a little clarification based on the comparison. Your work, is it on transmitter or generator? Because your statement is more like you are on generating more than transporting or transmitting.
Thank you for the question. Okay.
Yes, thank you. It's a follow-up on my question regarding the debt, ECG and Netco owning Gridco. Yes, and it's quite a colossal amount. If you receive this money, I believe it will help in investment. Do you have any agreement with this company, two companies, on payment of this debt? Any arrangement and timeline that they're supposed to pay this amount to help in your investment drive? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So we'll take the last two.
Yes, my name is Anapoku, Daily Searchlight. Engineer, you did indicate that Ghana produces about 5,231 megawatts of power. How much do we use as a country? And what are we doing with the excess, if there's any?
Thank you, Nana.
Mine is a follow-up on the debt question. We want to know how much the debt is impacting their operations.
Thank you for the question. So we invite the Chief Executive back for his responses and then concluding remarks.
Your question had to do with whether we do generation or transmission. If you look on the board, where the red line is, that is our room. You notice that we are between the generators and the distributors. Our rule simply is that you are the young farmer in, let's say, Yendi. I bring my truck, you give me 100 tubers of yam to come and deliver to Deputy Minister. You expect that I will deliver the 100. So I will carry the 100. If on the way, my driver decides to jump a speed ramp and one yam tuber falls down, that is not your issue, because you're giving me 100 and you're paying me for the 100. And therefore, I need to compensate for the one tuber that, so that is our rule. We are in the middle. So we take from either IPP or from VRE and send to whoever is allocated to me that I should deliver. So we are mainly in the transmission. But because we do the system operation, you manage the generators that are coming on and the distribution. It is your role. You are an independent. So if we need BUI to come on with additional demand, we will ask BUI to come, because one thermal plant has gone down. Those are the routes. A direct linkages with generators and transmission distributors. Legacy debt. I'll plead for my director of finance to come and give the proper detail about what government is doing for us to address. Samir, you have my attention. Yes.
Thank you very much, and all protocols observed. So just go straight to the point, like my chief said, is legacy debts. These are debts that have been accrued over 20 plus years since the inception of the relationship between these two companies. Now, as most of you will be aware, in the value chain of the power production, we have VRA, who is a generator. I'm just using an example. We go with the transmitter, we carry the power to ECG, who is a distributor. So they have the interface with the customer, ECG and NETCO. So what happens is that when power is served to customers, they pay through ECG. So they do their collections, and they will in turn distribute the monies to the various value chain players, which is the generators and the transmission companies. Now, historically, I think that there's been a challenge within the value chain where ECG also have their commercial losses, so in terms of the collection rates have been low. But the good news is that if you look just from 2020 coming to 2021, as we all sat down to see the challenges we had, the government put in place the cash waterfall system. This was a system which was supposed to provide equitable distribution of the revenues that are collected from the customers. So in essence, when it usually collects the monies, we have members of the cash waterfall committee, which comprises of all the value chain players, and we share equally. So if you look at from that perspective, you can see that prior to the cash waterfall implementation, collection rates were just below 20%. Now we're getting up to between 55–60%. So this is a vast improvement. But there's a lot we can do together. But like my chief said, if we're able to build a robust infrastructure, if the ECG is supposed to plug their commercial losses, the collection rates goes up, and we will all be going home happily. So it's a work in progress, and together we're working on that. Thank you.
I'll handle the install capacity and what we do with the excess. Install capacity simply means the total that is available. So Ameri, for instance, that is out, is part of the installed. Akusumu has about 1,100 megawatts. It depends on the water level. So when you talk about installed, they are all part. Highest that we've seen so far, I think, is 3,558 megawatts. That happened in, I think it's January 26th, around evening. But normally the hot season is around March ending towards April. Therefore, in our budget and with our engagement with the minister and his team, we've given an indication that we expect that we'll go close to 3,600 plus meg. And that is what we do. Like I mentioned, if we have the available fuel resource and there is the demand, we'll meet it, So gradually, and you see, in a plant too, you always must have some level of reserve. When we say reserve, it's like your car. You can do a total of 160 kilometers per hour, but you do average like one to. When you are doing overtaking and you are hot, you call on your power and do your 150 to overtake and save. So we normally have some spinning reserve. By and by, as the economy grows, demand goes up. These capacities will be handled. We grow averaging about 8 to 10% year on year. So that's a number, The debt impact on our operations. I wouldn't want to deceive anybody. It is an issue. That is the reason why government makes a conscious effort to find some resources for us to do the investment that we require. It all with the understanding that, hey, this legacy debt may have to be addressed in a strategic way over time. Did I answer your question? Why? Let me last one.
Well, specifically, if you can tell us how it's impacting your operations. Is it making you lose money? You know, is it making you inefficient in some ways? Yeah.
Okay, that's what. Okay, I understand your question now. Yes, because I don't have all. Look, when I come to my office and the management team are here, we have bulk of compensation that we need to pay for people that's given us their land for us to use. Then also, if I had the resources, I would have bulldozed all my lines. Clearly, when you do that, it gives you like 2 or 3 years. Much of disturbances that we have is because there is some tree under the line, you've loaded a little to the line has come down a little more. It is not touching the ground. And normally it doesn't touch the object. It is the distance as you close it up. Then the fire that is silently walking on it will find a path to the ground. If I had all the resources, but we are managing it. You know, we are managing within the limited resources that we have. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister.
On behalf of the Minister for Information, Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, management and staff of our ministry, and also on behalf of SIGA, through whose collaboration we've been able to put together this important platform, I would like to say thank you, Engineer Sienye and your delegation, for making time for this very important exercise. We have been doing this briefing with ministers. We extended to regional ministers. We have extended to all SIGA agencies. And in fact, if we get the opportunity to extend to the very basic or baseline level in terms of decentralized governance, so that we can account to Ghanaians and answer all the pertinent questions that they may have. So thank you for making time for this exercise. And to our friends from the media, as always, I say a very big thank you to you, and also call on you to amplify and spread all the good news that the Chief Executive has brought to us. Thank you so much for making time. Good morning.